Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to some EVE Online. Welcome also to sisi, the test server for EVE Online, where today I want to take a look at project discovery, which is actually a project that CCP is doing with real-life scientists to try and have some sort of crowd science happen in EVE Online. I think it's really cool, and if you want to have more details, there's actually a dev blog. So just go over here for dev blogs. And then we've got Project Discovery Needs You, and here CCP is working with massively multiplayer online science and the Reykjavik University to try and bring this crowd science project to us. And you can get all of the details about how it works, the rewards, and where you can bring feedback to CCP inside this dev blog. So if you want to read up on Project Discovery, then definitely head over there. But since it is on sisi, we are going to take a look at the current iteration of Project Discovery itself. Now, I've already been playing around with it a little bit, and I must say that my first impression is that this is not easy. My mind always wants to find a 100% right answer, which is exactly what this is not about. So you find this in the business part of the Neocom, then just go for Project Discovery. And you can see here my current stats. I'm at rank 2 and at 55% accuracy rating. So I'm obviously not a biologist or an actual scientist. So I can only do this from a very amateurish perspective as an amateur basically, and so I'll get a lot of things wrong, but it's all about the effort, and if the entire player base can get behind this, we could actually see some nice results of this. So you can always restart the tutorial, and we're going to do this as part of this video to explore Project Discovery. So we can start the tutorial. First of all, of course, you've got to image, we've got to analyze, and it's all about the green coloring in these images. That is what you want to analyze. You can zoom in on the image by hovering over it, and you can fix the zoom just by clicking on this, and you can click again and then the zoom is gone. What I don't really like is that whenever your mouse hovers this, you're automatically zooming, but okay, it's actually pretty functional. So let's click this here. Then you've got different categories in which you'll have to try to analyze this picture. So first of all, you've got the nucleus, which is basically the blue center of the cells. Yep, right there. Then you've got the cytoplasma, which is basically the red part of the cell, everything around the nucleus. And then you've got the periphery, which is at the very edge of the cell. And then you've got not identifiable. Sometimes I guess you will come across pictures where there is absolutely no green or just nothing but green. And then of course you can't really make a good analysis of that. And you've got color channel filters, so you can also view this with only the green on, only the red, and only the blue on. Well, always the green, but compared to the other colors. And then you can of course submit your analysis. Here's my rank 2, 55%, so not that good. And you can also always check your submission history, and as I've just shown, you can always redo the tutorial. The tutorial is basically 7 pictures where they know the answer, and so they're going to basically test you, and you actually do have 100% right or wrong on this one. But once you start analyzing actual pictures, it's a whole lot less about being absolutely right. So let's get started on this. We can clearly see that it's centered around the nucleus, and as part of the tutorial they immediately show that that's what this is about, so they only highlight this one, and we can see just some spots inside this. So it's really just about small spots inside the nucleus. I guess this could be the best picture. So I would say that it is not the nucleus itself. I don't think it's ectoplasma either, which is encompasses everything in the nucleus except the nucleoli, a few small elongated circles, and overlaps with the blue marker. So I don't think it's this. It could be nucleoli, a few small, somewhat elongated circles within the nucleus overlapping with holes in the blue marker. Would that be the case? I don't actually think that that's the case. So here we also have nucleoli, fibrillar centers, clusters of small spots in the nucleoli, which are small, somewhat elongated circles within the nucleus overlapping with holes, also overlapping with holes. So they must be either this or this, and a few small, somewhat elongated circles. I'm not seeing that, I'm much more seeing these. So let's press this one, let's press submit, and then let's see if I'm right or wrong. As part of the tutorial, they're basically going to check, and it is the correct answer, so I recognize this correctly as being a nucleoli. Let's take the next one. Let's go through the entire tutorial and just work a little bit on our skills for project discovery. So this is pretty obviously, it has not part of the nucleus. This is all about the cytoplasma around the cell. And let me see, we've got possibly mitochondria, which would be a long thread-like pattern, rather like spaghetti, sometimes long and sometimes chopped up. The mitochondria can be found throughout the cell, starting centrally close to the nucleus and stretching all the way out to the edges of the cell. Interesting. Then we also have possibly cytoskeleton, long, very straight parallel filaments that outline the edges of the cell. It obviously doesn't look like that. Or we've got vesicles, small bright spots that are uniform in size and shape, and they are either evenly distributed throughout the cell or clustering next to the nucleus. So I'm seeing it could be vesicles and it could be mitochondria, I think. And I'm not a specialist, you know, it's been a long time since I've had any biology lessons, but for me personally, this doesn't look like the small spots that we have here, small bright spots that are uniform in size and shape. So I'm going to go with mitochondria here. It starts close to the nucleus of the cell and then it expands out over there. So let's press submit again. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. I think the more you do this, the easier it is going to get, and apparently I am correct. This is indeed mitochondria. Cool. All right. Moving on to the next one. Okay, here is where personally I feel that this is becoming more tricky, because we've got two categories, both the periphery and the cytoplasma. So judging at it from this angle, I think we're dealing with cytoplasma itself, right? Because you're seeing basically throughout the entire cell a pretty uniform green. It doesn't really match microtubule organized centers or agree-some, so I'm decently certain that cytoplasma is right. Then the question of course is, what is it going to be at the very edge of these cells, at the periphery? So I'm not really seeing any really distinct features, and so plasma membrane I think makes the most sense, because over here you've got a lot of that red stuff, which I'm not really sure what to call it. I'm not a scientist again, and it doesn't look like focal adhesion or cell junctions at the very edge. This looks a lot like plasma membrane. So this looks pretty easy to me, and I actually think that I've already done the tutorials 3 or 4 times, that I've already seen this picture before. So I'm right again. Moving on to picture 4 out of 7. This time we're talking about both the nucleus and the cytoplasma, which again I find to be pretty tricky. But looking at this from this perspective, we get cytoplasma, cytoskeleton, or microtubule organization. I don't really think that it's going to be cytoskeleton. Tangled rope structures, I'm not seeing that, so cytoplasma obviously makes the most sense. But now we've got to choose between a nucleoplasma, the nucleus itself, or nucleoli, and for that of course it's probably better to go into the green. We can clearly see that it is slightly highlighted, not by a lot, and then the question is, the gaps, are they persistent? In this cell I'm not seeing it too well, so let's maybe check it on this one. We've got a really big gap here that also does shine through, and here we've got the nucleus takes up a big part of the cell and there are no gaps here. So I'm going to go with nucleus because of this dark area right here. Let's press submit. And I'm correct again. Whoa, this tutorial is going way better than any of the previous tutorials. So I guess just being busy with it will improve your abilities in this project discovery. So 5 out of 7 here again. We're talking about both the nucleus and the cytoplasma. We're talking about either cytoskeleton, endoplasmic reticulum, I don't really know what that is, or vesicles, which are small bright dots that are uniform in size and shape. It does look a lot like that, right? Small bright dots around this. So let's definitely select this. It doesn't look anything like the membrane, which is supposed to look like a spider's web or like these cytoskeletons. And then the core of this, of course, the nucleus. Let's see what we can figure out here. Let's again go for the green. All right, obviously this is again highlighting pretty much the entire nucleus of the cell. The question again is, are the dark spots of the blue part also shining through? So I would again put this at nucleus, honestly. Doesn't look anything like this one, and this is supposed to be evenly distributed across the entire nucleus. So I'm going with nucleoplasma here again. Transmitting analysis. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. I'm right again. All right. Doesn't happen that often that I do this well in the tutorials, but here is a 6 out of 7. This does look a lot like these mitochondria, right? Because these are obviously not spots, not agrésum, and then the cytoskeletons, thin strands stretching throughout the cell, overlapping perfectly with the red marker, making the color turn yellow. It's obviously not that, so it's bound to be mitochondria. But then again, we have to try to analyze the nucleus here. So let's take a look at one that could be a pretty clear nucleus. Here we've got green. It is only showing these spots outside of the blue stuff. So that's interesting. It's obviously not nucleus. It could be nucleoli, a few small, somewhat elongated circles within the nucleus overlapping with holes. I think it could be this. Nucleoli rim. No, I don't think it's that. We should be seeing a green circle in there. And then we've got nucleoli fibrillar centers, clusters of small spots in the nucleoli, which are small, somewhat elongated circles within the nucleus overlapping with holes. So I would say it could be these. And it could be these. These look a whole lot like one another. And for that, we'll have to probably try to check a few more. Let's see. Maybe the center one here could give us a good indication. A few somewhat elongated circles or clusters of small spots. God, it's not easy. Let's try to find a big spot here. This looks a lot like clusters of small spots, honestly. A lot more than a straight up circle. So I'm going to go with fibrillar centers for this one. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. Honestly, this analysis, I'm wrong. There we go. And this is, of course, where I don't exactly know what where I made a mistake in thinking, whether it's just these nucleoli, because I guess, well, I don't really know. I think it could be either one of these, but I made my first mistake here, so let's press continue. And over here, this feels very strange once again, because you've got a lot of green within the blue part, and we're not gonna be talking about the nucleus. Instead, we're talking about something else. So it could be the Golgi apparatus, but that one seems to be outside of the nucleus, so I don't think it's going to be that. Centrosome, single or double spots which overlap with the center of microtubules, the red marker. Mitochondria, no, obviously not, but microtubule organized centers, a small and somewhat diffuse structure that overlaps with the center of microtubules. So both of these, again, very, very similar in their description, overlapping with the center of the microtubules, but one is supposed to be a single spot or double spot, and this one is supposed to be a small, somewhat diffuse structure that overlaps. So I'm guessing it's going to be a small, somewhat diffuse center structure. So we're going to gamble on the microtubule organized centers, but I think it could easily also be a centrosome, and I don't really know. So there we go. It is the correct result. So all right, I went really nicely through this tutorial. Honestly, I'm not sure if it is because my analysis of this is correct or because I'm somewhat gambling, right? Or because I have some experience by now with project discovery, but it's definitely a good start. Now, if you do this for the very first time, after this you're gonna get a few full pictures where they actually already have the results from, and so you'll again get a right or wrong. But having done that already, these are actual pictures from the project discovery database that have not really been 100% analyzed just yet. And so this is all about the actual crowd science, and you will see that there is not a right or wrong answer. There is just how do other people that have seen this picture think about this one. So here we go, let's go for the green. We can clearly see that, oh man, I'm gonna have to go for nucleus, because if you look at the blue, it looks very much like that. Let's see if we can find one with clear darker spots like this. And do they overlap? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. So here again, not showing up too well. Let's see if we can find one really bright one. So I would go with either nucleus, I think it could be, or nucleoplasma, but I'm not seeing this pattern where you have clear darker spots. You could also, no, it's not about the membrane, I don't think. No. So I'd say this is obviously about the nucleus, and let's just submit that. And here is where the actual interesting part happens. Do people agree with me or not? Yeah, 58% agree that it could be the nucleus. So this seems to be the current consensus, but 47% think it could be nuclear bodies as well, which I think is strange, because here we're talking about a few 5 or less distinct spots in the nucleus middle marker. I guess 1, 2, 3, 4 could be seen here. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3 could be seen here, but here, I mean, we're talking about quite a few more, and here as well. So I think nucleus is right, but nuclear bodies, it could be. Some people also think it could be nucleoplasma, and this is actually the result we're looking at, because this is of course what scientists want. When something really starts to form with thousands of people analyzing the same picture, and if this gets to 60, 70, 80%, then they can be pretty sure that that is the correct answer. So let's move on to the next one here. Of course, you get a slight reward, some loyalty points and analysis points, and then we can try another one. Okay, loading it up. So interesting, that's a lot of cells in one picture. And I mean, there's some green here and there, so let's take a look. Let's see if there's a clear pattern that we can spot here. Oh man, not easy, right? I'd almost put that into not identifiable. What does that look like? You have to admit that starts to look a whole lot like a not identifiable one, in my opinion, because it's very, very slightly, you can see the nucleus showing up here as being slightly darker, but it's hardly visible. And then of course on the red you could say cytoplasma seen throughout the whole cell except the nucleus, blue marker. And so from that perspective, maybe let's zoom out completely. Yeah, and then let's go for this and this. So there we go. You can see the nucleus very slightly, so I would be hesitating between just cytoplasma and not identifiable. And I guess because I can spot darker parts of the nucleus, that I'm going to go with straight up cytoplasma on this one. Let's press submit and let's see what other people think of this one. 11%, 88% think that these are mitochondria, long threads like that look like spaghetti. I think personally, I think that's pretty weird. If you look at this, to me it doesn't look anything like that, but also 11% think that this is unspecific. So we're still in the big patterns. A lot of people also fill in nucleoplasma or nuclear bodies, which I don't agree with, because I think the idea is that they need to be more green if it's actually about that. Let's maybe just do one more. I actually think this is okay. I can see myself doing this while mining, for instance. This is interesting stuff, pretty entertaining, trying to find these patterns. But if I would have to say what would I like to see or have to help me with this, it would be, for instance, have an actual scientist that knows this stuff do some of these himself, so that we know what he's looking at, what he finds more important. I think a tutorial like that would be very, very helpful. So here we go again, not very clear. We've got some clear spots outside, but within the cytoplasma, I'm obviously not seeing anything on the periphery here. I'm seeing nucleus, and I am also seeing something inside the cytoplasma. But am I doing this right? I've got no idea. And so, as I've said, what I think could help us is to have someone that knows about this stuff. First of all, explain us how these pictures are taken and what the different colors exactly represent. And number two, do a few of those for us to show us exactly how they are analyzing these problems. So let's take this one. I think this one looks pretty interesting. We can clearly see that the nucleus is highlighted and that the gaps overlap. But everything in the nucleus except the nucleoli, don't really like it that much. Nuclear speckles evenly distributed, and with their uneven shape they look somewhat like leopard speckles. I think it looks a lot like that, honestly, within the structure, within the nucleus, and then outside of it, of course, compared to the red, you've got some bright spots as well. So I don't think it's an organized center. I don't think it's cytoskeleton. No, that doesn't look anything like that. Doesn't look anything like that. Nope. Agrisum. Nope. Nope. Could it be something like the Golgi apparatus? Honestly, it doesn't look like that to me, because these are just bright spots within the cytoplasma. So I would say vesicles makes the most sense. Uniform in size and shape, yeah, I would go for these two. I don't think it's got anything to do with the periphery. So again, let's submit that and let's see what the rest of the members of Project Discovery think. No one agrees with me that this could be nuclear speckles. Most people think it's either nuclear bodies or nucleoplasma. I considered that as well. What I don't like is how ununiform this looks. So you clearly have brighter spots, and then a lot of people do think it is vesicles, and so I guess that that could be the consensus, because 85% is pretty damn high. And yeah, there you go. That is Project Discovery. I'm almost at rank 3. Maybe I'll just do one more. Let's see if we can. I just reached rank 3. There we go. That is pretty interesting. And the higher I can get my accuracy rating, the better it's going to be. So okay, final one. Let's take a quick look here at the green. It has a lot to do with the nucleus. This looks a whole lot more like nucleoplasma, because it is obviously we've got the same gaps and we've got green all over the place. And then this on the outside, if we go for the red, it looks pretty evenly distributed, so I would almost go with cytoplasma on this one. Let's maybe check it out zoomed out. With the red, I can see the similarities here. I don't really see any structures or patterns outside of the nucleus. And then for the nucleoplasma, we can see that pretty clearly. So I would say these two seem all right. Let's see if people agree with me. 95% agree with the cytoplasma, and some people agree that it could be nucleoplasma here as well, showing up. Of course, on this one, on the right side there, I gotta agree with them that it's not that clear, for instance. But yeah, project discovery, some real world science coming to EVE Online. I think that this is pretty damn cool, and I highly recommend that you check it out. I've been going here now for almost half an hour, and I don't feel like I'm bored or like I've wasted my time or anything like that. I think that this is pretty interesting. But as I've said, the more background information and examples they can give me, the better equipped I feel to actually do an analysis like that. Sometimes I guess when you start with this, one thing you have to keep in mind is that there's probably no completely right or completely wrong answer. This is all about your opinion, and just a mass of opinions is going to try and form a picture, an analysis of these pictures, but you're never really wrong in this. So keep that in mind if you're actively participating in project discovery. But I think it's pretty cool. Check it out on sisi, and let's hope that we can make it work. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all next time.